Jia Hao, as they say in China. Today we're going to be talking about our old friend Peter Schiff. I recently watched a video he did on the Pop podcast where he was talking with Anthony Pompliano, and they actually didn't talk about Bitcoin a whole lot during this podcast, but they did talk about it a little bit towards the end. And I'm just gonna play a small portion of it right now. So I'm using like a screen recorder to do this, and it's a pretty cheap one. It's free, and it won't record the sound of my screen, but I have the closed captions, is that's what it's called, what Peter says here. So he says people who have bought Bitcoin over the last 5 years are basically losing money. Says that's the reality. And Peter Schiff to like justify uh, like these kind of statements, Peter Schiff just keeps going back to like the high point of Bitcoin in 2021. And like he kind of, the way he talks about Bitcoin was higher today for pretty much the whole year in 2021. He kind of implies that he never really says that, but he doesn't talk about like the average price or the low price. So today we're going to look at the facts. If you enjoy the content, like and subscribe. Thank you to all my current subscribers. All right, so I asked Claude about this and asked it to make a chart for me and asked it to compare today's price. It's actually, I think, a little higher than here than what it is actually today. This video is being recorded on where I am, August 13th. I'm in Vietnam. Are most people who bought Bitcoin over the last 5 years losing money? Well, let's look at the facts. According to Claude, over the last 5 years, from August 13th, 2021 to August 11th, 2026, Bitcoin closed above today's price on 730 days, exactly 40% of the time. So I'm actually also a math tutor on the side, and I'm pretty sure 40% does not constitute most of the time or most people. And we can look at the chart over here. The green line represents today's price, and this is a chart from August 2021 to August 2026, and you can see there is a decent portion above today's price, but like Claude said, it's most of it is below today's price. So most people who bought in the last 5 years are actually, I mean, probably above where they bought the price at. They're probably like in the black. I mean, maybe I don't know, unless it's possible maybe a bunch of people bought like right at the high, but I wouldn't think so. I would think like if that were the case, the price would have just kept going up. So I would think probably most people probably bought at the low points rather than the high points. Look at what else Peter Schiff says. So here's a screenshot from later in the podcast where Anthony asked him why he thinks, like Peter says, that he thinks the price will be lower 5 years from now. Of course, he's been saying that for like the last 15 years. He thinks the price will be lower 5 years from now than it is today. And Anthony asked him why. And he's like, well, I don't know if you can read this. It's a little small, but it says, well, for the same reason it's lower than it was 5 years ago. And let's take a closer look at the price 5 years ago. All right, so this is actually a chart from January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021. The green line is today's current price. And as you can see, the vast majority, Bitcoin was well below today's current price in 2021. So here I asked Claude what was the average closing price in 2021, and it said the average closing price of 2021 was $47,410. So Bitcoin's low point in 2026 this year so far was like around $58,000. So compared to the average closing price of 2021, the low point was like $10,000, more than $10,000 above the average price in 2021. That was the low point this year. And then I think I asked it for the average price um, this year somewhere. Yeah, here I asked it what's the average closing price so far this year. It says Bitcoin's average closing price is about $72,150, which is above the high point of 2021. And this year it had a high point of $96,850, way above 2021's high point, and it had a low point of $58,590. So the average price in 2021 was like 47,000, was it 47,400? The average price so far this year is 72,150. But Peter Schiff likes to say, well, the price is lower than it was 5 years ago. That's not really true. And also keep in mind, you might be like looking at this average price and say, well, it's not that much higher than the high point of 2021. Oh, and also I forgot to mention, I asked Claude like how many days. Okay, so this chart here is from 5 years. No, this is the 5 year one, not the 2021 one. But I asked how many days Bitcoin was above today's price in 2021, and he said for 8 days. 8 days out of 2021, Bitcoin was above today's price. But Peter Schiff just likes to cling to that, and I'm sure he was doing the same thing in 2022 when Bitcoin fell below the high point of 2017, even though um, the average price of 2022 was well above the average price of 2017. And I'm not sure about, I think this has probably changed, but this might have changed like last year or this year, but I think the average price of Bitcoin year by year has always been higher. At least it was at least that way for like the first, I think, 12 years. And what else was I gonna? Oh yeah, and also like keep in mind Bitcoin always has down years or bad years during midterm years. You got to keep that in mind when comparing, like I said, the average price of this year. While it is above, a little above the high point of 2021, it's not that much above, but still, it's a midterm year. Those are always bad years for Bitcoin. It always comes back, even though in that interview with Popliano, Popliano says, Bitcoin's probably going to go back up. And he's like, well, I don't know why would you would think that, Peter. That's what Peter says. And then I also asked Claude to compare it today's current price with the high points of 2023 and 2020. This is something Peter will never tell you. He's only fixated on the absolute peaks of 2021. But the high point in 2020 was 29,000. So Bitcoin is up 121% compared to then. I think maybe gold might have outperformed Bitcoin since then. I'm not sure. Remember him saying the high point of gold in 2021 was like 1900, I think. I think it's now around 4,000. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Gold may have outperformed Bitcoin since 2020. I'm not positive, but if we go back, like to most of last year, that would not have been the case. And then in 2023, the high point was $44,200. So it's up 45% compared to the high point of 2023, just less than 3 years ago, right? Yeah, less than 3 years ago, it's up 45%. And again, it's a midterm year. always bad years for Bitcoin, but despite that, it is still up 45% from 3 years ago. So those are the actual facts. Let me know what you think. Peter Schiff, he will never admit Bitcoin is a good investment, and I've just pretty much proven like his strongest statements against Bitcoin don't really hold water. But let me know what you think. And again, thank you to all my subscribers. And go ahead, I think I'll go ahead and end the video here. I think we covered enough. And I'll see you in the next one.